Welcome to CPC's Candidate Forum. I'm your host, Cole Cusick. Today, Republican candidate Thomas Jefferson joins us regarding his bid to represent Kentucky House District 45. In May of 2024, he defeated incumbent Killian Timoney in the primary by a wide margin of 44 percentage points. His Democrat opponent was invited to join us today for the forum, but he chose not to respond. Lastly, House District 45 covers portions of Jessamine and Fayette counties. Thomas, welcome.
Cole, thanks for having me on. I really do appreciate it.
Yes, sir. The first question I want to start with today, Thomas, is why are you running for office?
Well, I'm retired now, and I've been retired 3.5 years, and I got tired of throwing rolled up socks at the TV about what's happening in our world, let alone our local and state government. And so I had a couple people approach me knowing what my values are, both as a conservative and as a Christian, and asked me to maybe put my hat in the ring. So I went home after talking to these gentlemen and talked to my bride about it. We've been married for 38 years, and I trust and value her opinion. And I do always need her blessing, by the way, too, on everything, but also prayed about it and just felt good to go ahead and do this and try to run.
Yeah, that's great.
The reason why I'm running is protect kids. There's a lot of other issues that I'm passionate about, but the thing I'm most passionate about is to protect our children. What is happening today in our world, let alone our state, is 10 years ago would be inconceivable. Allowing children under the age of 18 to get utilization surgeries and puberty blockers, it's just unfathomable. To go ahead, allow young men to compete in girls' sports, it's absolutely outrageous and on top of it all, dangerous. That's two of the things that, and again, our thank goodness, Frankfurt has addressed that. Our supermajority Republicans have addressed that, but there's the outside sources are, with Senate Bill 83 and Senate Bill 150 that have both passed that protects girls' sports and these surgeries. But the left and the radical left, are still trying to make inroads and trying to circumvent those past laws. I'll give you one example. In Lexington, near Hamburg, we're putting a new middle school in, and without the taxpayers knowing, they were trying to slip in gender-neutral bathrooms. And when we found out, we took the superintendent to task, and he tried to go ahead and do some double and triple talk about, what they act at first not really there, then, oh yeah, they're there, but we make other bathrooms available that are boys and girls. It's just unacceptable. And we're pushing back hard on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that was something expressly prohibited through Senate Bill 150 that you had mentioned. It does a couple of other things, but even pressing into Senate Bill 150, your opponent had written an article in 2023 saying that he supported these minors getting gender transition surgeries, getting unstudied pharmaceuticals for minors, the puberty blockers, and cross-sex hormones. Do you see that as a major difference in this race, is where you're going to come down on children and protecting children?
Oh, absolutely. In my opinion, any parent that allows their child to have these surgeries, in my opinion, it's child abuse. You have to be 18 years of age to get a tattoo because they say it's a life-altering decision. My goodness, how can you not be old enough to get a tattoo, but yet at age of 14, go ahead and say, I want to change my sex? It's unfortunate. That's a mental issue that needs to be dealt with, and the parents need to be held to task as well.
Yeah, I think it shows a breakdown in society when these things become options for families and for children to participate in. And unfortunately, the studies have not been done. And the short-term studies that are coming back are showing that these aren't helping children in the long term with their mental health and preventing suicide, which is why other countries are starting to follow like Kentucky and preventing children from going down this path.
There was a short-term study that I read about, and I believe it was out of Germany, but please don't hold me to that. But it's over in Europe, and the short-term study was showing that most of these children that had gender questioning, they eventually, the majority of them grow out of it. And again, this is one study, and it's something that was a very short study, but I believe in the long run, over history, we've always had boys that were a little bit more effeminate and girls that we called tomboys, but eventually they grow out of it. Now, again, there are some people that, again, they do, keep those issues, not issues, I'm sorry, those, I guess, positions with them as they go into adulthood, but for the most part, they just grow out of it and are mainstream.
Yeah. And there's plenty of detransitioners now that have gone through the process of having healthy body parts removed and that had transitioned. I heard from one just a couple of months ago at a conference, and she said it was after the first appointment that they began her on pharmaceuticals and then quickly led into surgery. And there is very few avenues and places that individuals can go if they don't want to go down this position. But going to another topic on families and children, Amendment 2 is coming up on the ballot, which will be alongside your race, which will change the Kentucky Constitution, if passed, to allow for educational opportunities, also known as school choice in Kentucky, to allow the Kentucky legislature to fund new avenues of education for children outside of the public school system. The first question is, where do you land on this topic, and how do you expect it, if passed, to impact Kentucky families?
Well, I'm 100% for it. I want to say one thing up front. I love our public schools and I love our public school teachers. But the thing is, it's been proven that that's not a great fit for every single child that's out there. Uh, every state that touches the state of Kentucky has some form of school choice available to their hardworking, tax-paying families out there, and all the public schools are still functioning. They're all still, and the thing is, it empowers middle-class Americans to afford that opportunity, possibly to send their child to somewhere where they'll flourish. And that's the main reason why we send kids to school. We want them to learn and flourish and be able to take care of themselves going in and into society.
No, that's a great point. I think the average per pupil spending there in Fayette County is close to $24,000 a student. And even if it's just a small portion of that to empower families, I think is a great idea. If their public school doesn't fit their needs, maybe it fits one child, but not the other. I know there's plenty of great options in Jessamine County and in Fayette County to provide for the needs of every family.
And the thing is, what it comes down to, I hear every time somebody that's an opponent of this saying we're taking money away from the schools. Really, the schools are getting taxpayer money. And why is it unfair to have a very, very small portion of that $24,000 that you stated earlier, just a small portion to go ahead and help a child and help a family make a decision that might be better for their child? I don't know if we have time, but I do have two examples of that happening. I have a positive thing and a negative about, what can happen to a child itself. My daughter, we adopted her when she was 9 years old from China. And when she got here to the United States, she couldn't speak any English. And we enrolled her immediately in our local elementary school and got her involved in the ESL program, which is English as a second language. And they were absolutely outstanding. They cared for her. They did everything they can to help her succeed in learning the language, reading the language, and her regular teacher and the ESL program teacher worked together tirelessly. And long story short, she's went to UK. She's graduated with great grades and is working on her own full time and just flourishing. But on the flip side, I'm part of the mentor program with Southern Christian Church, where I go ahead and meet up with a young man in Tates Creek Elementary that his parents or parent and the teachers feel a little bit more of a male influence will help him succeed. Uh, Last year, this is my third year with the same student. Last year, near the end of the school year, second grade is where he was at. Uh, he came to me crying at the door because I pick him up and we go to the library and I give him a Hot Wheel and a Lunchable, and then we talk about everyday things and play Battleship. I mean, it's not any brain surgery, but we just have fun and talk about, what's happening. And he was crying, and I said, "Man, what?" And I'm not going to say his name. I said, "Little man, what's wrong?" He said, "My teacher's making me take this test, and I told her I can't read." And I said, "What happened?" He goes, "Well, she told me just to guess at the answers." I asked his his home teacher, and who's a wonderful, wonderful lady. I said, "How in the world did he get from first grade to second grade?" And she says, "We do not hold anybody back." So this young man's going into third grade with we had a huge disadvantage, not being able to read very well, very well at all. And if this continues, he'll go into fourth, fifth, sixth high school way behind, and that's a recipe for defeat. It really is. So the parents, that maybe the small portion will help him get the extra help that he needs to succeed in life.
Yeah. No, thank you for serving our community in that way, Thomas, and prayers for him and his family. And I know Amendment 2 would greatly help, and options for educational opportunities, I know would greatly help for someone like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Kentucky is at a crossroads. We can choose to give in to the radical left, or we can choose to engage the culture in a God-honoring way.
I started the Commonwealth Policy Center because I believe that Christians have a responsibility to influence government and society to the glory of God. While the Commonwealth Policy Center's made a significant impact, our work isn't finished. If you'd like to join our movement working for timeless values, then head to our website.
To learn more, go to commonwealthpolicycenter.org.
Yeah. If you're just tuning in, we're interviewing Republican candidate for office, Thomas Jefferson, for House District 45 in our candidate forum. The next issue I'd like to address, your opponent was endorsed by a gun control group, Everytown for Gun Safety Action. According to their website, this group calls for a ban on assault-style weapons. Now, your website states that you're going to advocate for the Second Amendment and will always fight to support your right to self-defense. Where do you land on this, and would a ban on assault rifles be something that you would consider or approve if elected?
The thing is, it's a slippery slope. Today's assault weapon is tomorrow's handgun. All right, and they'll call those assault weapons. It's what it comes down to is our founding fathers wanted us to have the freedom to bear arms, and I'm not going to go against what our founding fathers decided. It's they're trying to push for red flag laws, which I'm 100% against. I mean, that would empower people, the government, to go into good law-abiding citizens' houses and confiscate their firearms without due process. And then it's up to the individual to go fight for their rights and prove that they're innocent. That's, again, I'm going to refer back to our founding fathers. They did not envision that. They envisioned when we have to go to court that we're innocent until proven guilty. And that would not be the case if we had that red flag law in effect.
Oh, I agree. Anytime the government has provided more power without due process, unfortunately, people get caught up in being falsely accused or their rights being taken away. And at this point in society, I think that's a very slippery slope, like you said, and I definitely agree.
And Cole, the thing is, what's unfortunate, they play on people's emotions, and some people are willing to do is give up their freedom for safety. They're giving up there's really no additional safety, because if you have these laws, the only people that have a gun are outlaws. It just comes down to law-abiding citizens will do what the law says. Criminals will not. So you're giving up safety as well as freedom at the same time.
Absolutely. So if you're elected, what are some of the major issues you plan to address, whether that's through introducing a bill or speaking to an issue coherently on the floor of the House. What are some issues you want to address if elected?
Well, number one, if this Second Amendment passes, I am 100% in on trying to make sure that we have some form of school choice for our children and for the parents that want to have that option available. A couple other things that I'm passionate about is I want more transparency in our public schools. We do have laws in effect that if the parent's having a hard time to hearing about what the curriculum is and also other things, they can use steps through the government to do that, but it's very cumbersome. And I'd like to see that streamlined to where we should have really no problem whatsoever understanding what is being taught to our child and also what is in the libraries available to our children. I was just in a meeting at the public library locally, and I invite everybody to go out to your public library and go into the children's section and look at some of the books that are available. You would be appalled. You would be appalled. And that's our tax dollars paying for those.
Yeah.
Also,
No, I can.
another thing is government transparency. I would love to see we have available to representatives and the Senate. They have available, and I say we because I'm assuming I'd love to win and I'd love to represent the 45th, but available on every single bill that's brought forward to the floor, a synopsis of a short version of what that bill is trying to do and accomplish. That's what I would like to make available to the general public. Something that's not 10 pages of legalese, all right, that nobody wants to read. I want the public to be aware in a very short, concise way of what your representatives are voting on. And so you can have a voice. You can contact the representative and say, listen, I need more information, or I'm 100% against that, or gosh, gung-ho, let me know how I can help you get that done. I would love to see that happen.
That's great. Thank you for outlining those things. Another question I have is, what are some ways you believe the government can be reduced in order to allow for greater economic growth than currently seen? And this can be reducing regulations either in healthcare or taxes or education.
Well, again, I'm working toward, I would definitely 100% back our continued effort to reduce our income taxes down to zero. That will benefit us by bringing more people into the state and more businesses into the state itself. Again, how we're accomplishing that and still being able to fund the government is switching to more of a consumption tax. And the consumption tax is brilliant because nobody can argue who's paying the taxes. There are a lot of individuals on the left try to say that the rich people don't pay their fair share, which they do, but they try to say that. Well, if you go to a consumption tax, rich people buy a lot of stuff. All right. So that means they're going to pay a whole bunch more taxes than average people like me and you. So it just comes down to that is a very good way of limiting your taxes itself. Waste itself. I want to harken back to Rand Paul, which he went ahead and talked about when a budget comes in. He'd like to do the penny law, where it comes down to you don't have an automatic increase in your budget for every single line item, but you have to reduce it by 1 penny per 100. And it goes ahead. That would make everybody tighten up and eliminate a lot of the waste. And that I think that would be a great thing for our state.
Yeah, I agree. Everybody expects a handout when they come to Frankfurt, whether they're a lobbyist or a state agency group, and whether at the federal level or at the state level, budgets have continued to increase. And I think that's a great idea instead of always assuming more money is going to keep coming in and more money comes out. Unfortunately, it's not always a taxation problem in the money that comes in. But as we see at the federal level with the national debt growing to $36 trillion, it's definitely a spending problem that we have.
Absolutely, Cole. I mean, it definitely is a spending problem. And that's why I'm thankful that our sessions are representatives and senators are part-time. because the more time people spend in Frankfurt, we see what happens in Washington, D.C., the more time they have to spend our tax dollars.
Yeah, I think that goes to a point that when you get elected, you come in with conservative ideas and principles, as we have a supermajority of Republicans in Frankfurt. But as time goes on, as you mentioned, it seems like reality hits with some of them. They become cozier and more open to bigger government. Do you plan on doing that when you get in, or what things do you have in plan to keep safeguards around you as you represent the people and try and bring those things that you had already mentioned to the forefront of your policies?
Well, the thing is, I've already signed a limit on how long I'm going to stay, term limit, commitment. I'm not making this my second career. I want to serve our community, serve the 45th district, and then get out. I don't want to be something like Mitch McConnell, unfortunately, and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. I don't want to be up there in my 80s or anything like that. I want to serve it and get new blood in there, because I think that would help our state itself. I'm running under the Liberty faction of the Republican Party, which is a very conservative part of the Republican Party. It's not embraced by the establishment. Matter of fact, RPK, the Republican Party of Kentucky, has not donated anything to my race because of my stances on a lot of these issues. Again, it's not that they're against me, but they understand what I will do if I get into Frankfurt. I'm not going to toe the line of the establishment. I'm going to vote my conscience and my Judeo-Christian values and what I know that the 45th district would want.
Yeah. Well, we're running out of time here, Thomas. I think you've provided a great interview and outlined your stances on many different issues. But I want to give you 1 minute to address the voters of your district and provide anything else that you would like them to hear prior to Election Day.
I'm not a politician. I was in the car business for 38 years. I've ran multi-million-dollar companies within the automobile industry. I understand what it takes to make a business successful. And really, government is a form of business. And there's got to be checks and balances. And we have to go ahead and limit our expenses to make this state great. And we've got to limit our spending. We've got to pay down our debt. We got to make the retirement programs for both the teachers and the government workers solvent, and I will vote to do so if so elected. And again, I would appreciate your vote.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us for this candidate forum, Thomas, and all those who are watching. Again, this is Thomas Jefferson. He's running in House District 45 in portions of Fayette County and of Jessamine County. Again, Election Day is on November 5th, and this race that he's in is slated to be one of the closest in the state. Again, thank you for joining us, and please get out and vote.
Thank you.